My name is Lee C. Camp. I'm a college professor who teaches courses in ethics. But there is a problem with that last statement, namely that it is not particularly altogether honest. It's really more like a lie. And of course, it's hard to overlook the irony in someone saying, I am an ethics professor, and then acknowledge that that is something like a lie. But I'm getting ahead of myself. One of the reasons that I will sometimes introduce myself as an ethicist is because of people's reaction to the other alternative, which goes something like this. I sit down on an airplane trying to avoid eye contact, because I know if I make eye contact with the person sitting down next to me, we will likely say hello. And if we say hello, then the odds of a conversation go way up. Now, I enjoy conversation. I'm a Southerner, but just not on airplanes. I want to be left alone on airplanes. But imagine a scenario in which the other person catches my eye. We say hello. Then the follow-up questions start. Until the inevitable question arises, you know what it's going to be. So, what do you do for a living? And I say, I'm a college professor. And there's this note of respect. And they'll say, oh, wow, cool, what a great job. And there's this kind of note of admiration that stokes my vanity. And those who know a bit about academic life might follow up and they'll say, oh, where'd you get your PhD? And I'll tell them, the University of Notre Dame. And they'll say, oh, what a great school. And then the vanity gets stoked all the more. But then the inexorable follow-up comes and they'll say, and what do you teach? And then I say, I teach theology. And their countenance falls visibly right before my very eyes, along with their voice. And they'll say, oh, that's interesting. But at least it allows me to be left alone on the flight. There once was a time in which theology was considered the queen of the sciences. To do theology was to engage in a public discipline. Religion was not thought to be a privatized matter of private spirituality. It was seen as something that should facilitate a helpful ordering of our lives in all of its realms and facets. Theology in such a world carried a sort of public heft to it. Now, some unfriendly critic might respond, of course it did, you idiot. And they might go on and say, that was the day in which the theologians were burning people at the stake. That's why we had the Enlightenment, to privatize you people. And to these sorts of critics, to the unfriendly and perhaps aggressive secularist, to be an ethicist, well, that's just fine. But to be a theologian in public, perhaps that's as appropriate as making love in public, but it's just more threatening. I must say, I never imagined when I started my career that I would encounter as much hostility as I have, simply trying to do theology in public. Once a Nashville radio rap station had a call-in survey, the results of which declared me stupid by a very wide margin. Or there was the day the local Fox affiliate aired a story complete with some folks calling for me to be fired. Or the emails like the one I stumbled back across recently, where a gentleman wrote to me to say, you're worse than an idiot because an idiot never knew. You're just an asshole. But many of the secularist critics have good reason to be suspicious. They might say, look, it's the Inquisition, stupid. It's the burning at the stake, the public violence that seems to result from public theology. And, well, this is true, at least in part. And more, I resonate with these sorts of suspicions. Perhaps I resonate with them too much. My lovely wife, Laura, has grown weary of the many times she's heard me tell stories like the one about the 16th century radical reformer Menno Simons. He himself pushed back against the public theologians and orthodoxy of his day. He was taken to trial, convicted, and then found guilty, and his tongue cut out, his flesh torn with red-hot tongs, and then he was tied to a ladder and burned on a bonfire. And then his wife was executed by drowning, all because his public theology did not fit with the prevailing public theology of the day. All these legit suspicions raised by the secularist critics are yet again one of the reasons I'm hesitant to say that I'm a theologian in public. But still, I wonder, might it not be better to have open and public conversations with all parties being more honest about who they are? Can I be a Christian theologian in public? Or must I ultimately be merely an ethicist, whatever the hell that might mean, committed to vague notions of right and wrong and endless arguments about complex dilemmas? I realized recently that I don't think I can be a very good so-called ethicist. I was guest lecturing at a university, which is one of the finest in the world, actually. They had a summer program inviting undergraduates from all over the world, themselves from the finest universities in the world. And my host indicated it would be better, in effect, if I took the ethicist route rather than the theologian route. From a strictly academic point of view, I could technically say either. But what I discovered was this. In being an ethicist and not being a theologian, I felt castrated in my lecturing. There's a great wealth of resources in the theological tradition, remarkable arguments, compelling historical anecdotes, brilliant intellectual lights, and yet I had committed to making all this intellectual wealth off limits. I found myself boring and ineffectual, and I think I failed to contribute to the public good that day as I could have otherwise. So, the Tokens podcast dares to do theology in public, but it's a kind of theology that insists upon having conversations about supposedly non-theological topics like society and politics, things like whether or how to be happy, habits and human flourishing, conversations about music, books, the arts, and poetry. We shall dare to publicly discuss theology in a way that refuses to be overbearing, while also not pretending, like most people, don't care about faith, theology, and the traditions that form us. We promise to be nonpartisan, neither right nor left, nor even necessarily religious, which is another way of saying we commit to extending hospitality to those with divergent voices and convictions, welcoming poets and authors, theologians and activists, scientists and educators, musicians and writers, and even politicians. In the meanwhile, I should acknowledge that this experiment may lead me to conclude that I should simply be an ethicist. Maybe, but maybe not. We shall see. Welcome. Thank you for listening. We are excited to do this experiment with you. Will you please do us a favor? Go over to iTunes and leave one of those glowing 5-star reviews and subscribe then wherever you get your podcasts. And would you tell your friends about us? We would like for as many folks as possible to find our new podcast. Many, many thanks. We are grateful for the positive response we have received thus far. Remember, you can learn more about our live events, blog, online courses, and the podcast by visiting our website at tokensshow.com. Peace be unto thee.